So, Zoe, the new CBA, you were a player rep. I actually heard an interview on another network. You thought that there were some positives, maybe some negatives, but by and large, you're pretty pleased with the deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, CBA is a deal that's very complex and covers several different issues and things that players want and are trying to get each and every time we come up to negotiations. And like you said, we moved forward in several areas, but there's also some areas that are still kind of gray and that we actually kind of took a step back. And so, but when you look at it from, the big picture, we definitely impacted positively, I think, more players. But at the end of the day, there are some players that have been negatively impacted by this deal, and mainly that's the guys that don't have a vote, the former players that are receiving disability, our most vulnerable group. And so, you try to weigh everything out when you're doing a deal, but it is still hard to swallow when you have to impact some families in a negative way.
Yeah, and that's to be expected. I mean, that, in terms of a negotiation, you're not going to win 100% of it, right? So
no.
So you got some things, and they got some things. But I wanted to ask you about the 500 players that apparently did not vote. Can you get into that?
Right.
Why would that happen? Were these guys who would have voted against it? I mean, that's not good, bro.
It could have swayed it. Right, yeah, obviously it could have swayed it, but my only explanation is that we are a reflection of society. We're members of society, and every vote that we have, people don't vote either. And so, and our votes, our presidential or local elections, impact us way more than the CBA does. And so, on a collective basis. And so that's the only thing that makes sense how I can rationalize it, because everybody was informed. The email went out to everybody. Hopefully they had a good email. So it could have been various things. The email they don't ever check. They didn't really care, or for whatever reason, they just didn't want to put their name either way. And so, or they just didn't want to vote. So, I mean, I can't really speak to it because I don't know anybody who didn't vote to be able to ask them their reason why. But I know what we need to do is figure that out. And so as we move further along, and obviously when the CBA comes up next time, we minimize that number of guys that do vote, because as you see, that could have significantly impacted his vote the other way.
Right. Well, I don't know this. I'm just guessing, but I would assume that most of the people who voted no on the deal were strictly against the 17-game season. Is that correct?
I think you had a mixture of it. I think the 17-game season was a significant piece, especially if you're an older player in this league and understanding what an extra game means on your body. I also think that some guys were in the thought process of we didn't get enough. So even though we moved forward, guys thought we should have had more. Like, for example, the 50-50 split, it's 48-52 right now. And so I think that those were some things. And I think also some guys didn't feel like we had a clear win. Like the NFL got 17 games, and obviously being football players is about winning and losing. So where did we clearly win? I don't want no incremental gain. I want a clear win. So is that healthcare with lifetime, or is that with 50-50? Is that with guaranteed contracts or taking tags completely off? So guys, I think, were kind of a mixed bag when it came to that sense as far as why they voted no.
Well, D is a good friend of ours, and he's a good family friend of mine in particular. And we've had D on the show a million times. And D's answer to the 50-50 split, and you know this very well, is that other leagues claim to have 50-50, but that's after the owners take their cut with all these shady maneuverings. And
right, the exemptions and stuff, and you got to understand all that.
Right, and so that the players, while on paper it may say, okay, when this goes into effect, you're going to get 48.5%, you're actually still getting a much larger percentage than the other leagues that claim to have 50-50 splits.
Correct. So it's a perception thing. Yes. But I think guys still, that matters, right? To a lot of people, perception is reality.
True, but they also, wouldn't it help if they understood?
The last deal is better. I think guys do understand. I mean, I think we have guys that are on our executive committee and our reps that understand the economics of our deal and how you have exemptions. I mean, we even have exemptions in some of ours. And so they still wanted to move towards closer to 50-50, because I'd be naive to say all the guys that say they want 50-50 don't understand the economics of how it actually works, because we've done a lot of time educating guys. So people still feel like they want more, regardless of if we still have the biggest share compared to other leagues. People don't trip off of that too much. I think when you're talking about players, we have the biggest share. I understand that, but I still want more because I think we deserve more.
Yeah. All right. So what about so tell me exactly what you felt like you really got. What was your major victory in this?
For me, I mean, obviously it all comes down to money, right? Because then that allows you to raise minimums, increase benefits, do pension parity. And so the biggest thing for me was how we move forward and how the economics works. As far as the last deal was an average of 47% over the life of the deal. And so the league started up higher, 48%. And by the end of the deal, we're getting closer to 46. So that just had to average 47%. Versus this new deal, we're going to, it's every year we'll have a 48% share. And then once the 17th game kicks in, they'll go to 48.5 on an annual basis. So there's no manipulation there with the percentage. And we just continue to keep our 48% as and 48.5 as the all revenue grows, which I think is great.
Right, and rosters will expand. That's pretty good. I mean, I know it's small numbers, but that's good.
Well, that's all right, but that's all part of having more money because you can't expand rosters necessarily. Well, the game day rosters, right, are cool because those now I think go from we have 48 active guys or 49 active guys, but then we also can go from 53 to 55 with a practice squad going up.
Right, but
then they make active roster money. And so you have to have money to enable to have a lot of these benefits and new things that we've kind of added into the deal. So I think that's why everything really stems from our share of the pie.
Right. So getting back to the 17 games and the expanded playoffs, which we haven't talked about yet, fans like to see it because fans don't like the preseason. You know that. You don't like the preseason. But the 17 games is big for fans, and then the expanded playoffs. How do you think the players felt about the expanded playoffs in particular?
It all depends on where you come from. If you've been a guy like a Kyle Williams who's been on the cusp every year, I'm pretty sure you love it because that's what you ultimately play for to get in so you can win a Super Bowl. But we had guys that have been in the playoffs on an annual basis, and so they looked at it like this. You had a 17th game to me, and then now if I'm not the 1 seed, I have to play another game because these guys are in the playoffs every year, normally fighting for that 1 or 2 spot. And so now you have to add another game to me. Right. And so I'm really looking at it like 18. And so, again, there goes the diversity and why people look at it so differently from our side. And so you have some guys that obviously love it because it gives them an opportunity to get into the playoffs and play, and then some guys hated it because now you're taking away a bye week from those guys who would have been the number 2 seed.
Mm-hmm. Why not negotiate a second bye week in the regular season?
Well, you guys are getting the bye week right after the third preseason game, right?
Yeah, well, you get the bye week in the 4th preseason game that would have been there, right? You get now. Most teams normally would give guys the 3 days off after that Thursday night game. So now we're kicking the Thursday night game out, and then coaches have to give you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. So that's almost like a pseudo bye week. I know we also talked about squeezing. I don't know what the logistics of some of the stuff is still kind of fluid. Pushing back that second bye week, because if I get a bye week in the 4th preseason game and then I get a bye week in I think they start in like week 5, that really doesn't do me any good. And now I have to play the rest of the season out without a bye week. And then if I make the playoffs and I'm not the number 1 seed, I have to go straight through. That's crucial. So it's thinking about a different way to maybe squeeze that bye week or push it further back in the season. So maybe it starts week 7 or 8. But a lot of the stuff is contingent on like TV contracts and how people look at it, because we did talk about having 2 bye weeks, and they said the TV networks didn't like the way that played out. Right. And so there's always trying to figure out where that fine line between player health and safety which should reign over the economics of stuff. And so that's just the world we live in, and trying to figure out what's the best for our guys holistically and trying to do the best by them.
Right. So some teams are going to have essentially 2 bye weeks in the first 5 weeks because they'll have that final preseason game canceled, so they'll have a bye week there, and then they'll have the regular season bye week.
Correct, but I think we pushed it back a couple of weeks, but that's still, if you get it early, it almost feels like it doesn't do you any good with the additional game and possibly going to have to make a run in the playoffs.
Right. And then with the 17 games, have they decided when that would start? And then are they just going to alternate home versus away every other year? How's that work?
I haven't got to the logistics of that side yet of it. I don't know when it's going to start. It can start as soon, I think it's 2022. And so they can go 22 or 23, depending on logistically for them how they decide they want to implement it. But they didn't tell us because I think they wanted to have the range of opportunities to negotiate that with the TV contracts. As far as 22 or 23.
I have another question too.
You want to labor agreement. I actually want to get one football on-field perspective.
All right, let me just ask one more labor question, then JP will ask the football.
All right.
If the players had voted no to this deal, right? If a few more hundred had voted no, what do you think that would have done to negotiations? Could the players have gotten a worse deal if you went back to the table?
Yeah, that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the economic turn, especially with coronavirus, the uncertainty, I think also saying no, that might have changed the mentality of the owners a little bit because based on 11 and this time around, just from being around it, the mood was a lot different from their side. And so, yeah, there's always a ton of factors that could have changed it. But, guys, we could have got a better deal. I don't know. So, but yes, it could have worked either way against us.